welcome. The first truth we must confront tonight is a sobering one. A truth that applies not just to economics, but to the very soul of ambition. 97% of people will never reach their full potential. This is not a judgment. It is a statistical reality, a simple, painful equation of human behavior. They will talk about success, they will dream about wealth, and they will imagine a better future. But they will never, not once, take the deliberate, painful step away from the habits, the thinking patterns, and the limitations that are keeping them stuck. They will choose the path of least resistance. They will stay comfortable. They will manufacture elaborate excuses. They will convince themselves, through relentless inner dialogue, that success is for other people, for the lucky, for the privileged, for the talented, but tragically, not for them. And that, my friends, is the self-imposed sentence that guarantees most people will never rise above the vast, crowded plain of mediocrity. You must understand this distinction with absolute clarity. Success is not about luck. Luck is simply preparation, meeting opportunity. Success is not about talent. Talent often leads to arrogance and inconsistency. Success is, at its foundational core, about mindset, the architecture of your thought life, the discipline of your inner world, the quality of the decisions you make when no one is watching. The top 3%, the ones who build real wealth, lasting success, and genuine fulfillment, they think differently, act differently, and make decisions that systematically, mathematically separate them from the great, languishing majority. If you want to succeed at the highest level, you have a solemn, non-negotiable duty. You have to walk away from the 97%. This means more than just distancing yourself physically. It means a total, profound divorce from their philosophy. You have to stop thinking like them, acting like them, and, most importantly, living like them. The tragedy of the 97% is that they are not winning, they are surviving. They are not steering their ship, they are drifting. They are going through life on autopilot, following the pre-programmed route of cultural convention. They are working jobs they hate, often for managers they despise, settling for less than they know they are capable of, avoiding discomfort like a plague, and convincing themselves that this mundane, restrictive existence is just the way life is supposed to be. This is the cult of comfort, and it is the most expensive membership fee you will ever pay. Think about the environment of the 97%. They surround themselves with people who are equally stuck. Their conversations are a repetitive loop of complaint: the economy, the government, the boss, the traffic, the weather. They reinforce the same limiting beliefs, the same elaborate excuses, the same commitment to mediocrity. This continuous echo chamber acts as a powerful gravitational pull. Jim Rohn taught us that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This is not optional. It is a law of nature. If your primary source of intellectual nutrition is the lamentation and fear of the 97%, then your future is not an aspiration. It is a simple reflection of their limitations. They stay in the same place, year after predictable year, because their environment gives them permission to stay the same. The 3% have figured out one essential truth that the rest of the world ignores. Success is not about working harder. It is about thinking differently. The 97% are trapped by their environment. They are surrounded by people who think small, dream small, and live small. They are masters of the 5-minute solution and the 5-year excuse. Their conversations are focused on problems instead of opportunities. They talk about what they cannot do instead of what they can do. They focus on limitations instead of possibilities. The 3% operate as architects of their lives, not as drifters. They do not wait for the right environment. They deliberately seek out and build an environment that demands growth. They seek out people who think bigger, who expect more from themselves, and who are committed to the relentless process of self-improvement, because they understand that the people you associate with will not merely influence your future. They will dictate your future's boundaries. If you want to think differently, if you want to live differently, you must be around people who challenge you to grow, not people who allow you to remain comfortable and small. We have established the cold, hard statistical reality. 97% of people are stuck, perpetually orbiting the gravitational center of mediocrity. Now, we must examine the mechanism that keeps them there. It is not fate. It is not bad luck. It is a universal, mathematical principle that Jim Rohn taught us governs everything from your bank account to your ambition. The law of association. This law states, simply and profoundly, that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This is not a social theory you can debate. It is a force of nature you must obey. Your income, your health, your discipline, your vocabulary, your expectations, and your capacity for risk, all of it is a direct, quantifiable reflection of your core circle. Think about the sheer power of this statement. If you calculate the average income, the average reading habits, the average health status, and the average ambition level of your 5 closest associates, you have, without question, calculated your own reality for the next 5 years. This is the hidden architecture of your destiny. The 97% are trapped by this law because they are passive. They accept their environment by default, not by design. They do not realize that their current environment, the conversations they entertain, the problems they discuss, the excuses they tolerate is not a neutral background. It is a toxic holding pattern that actively suppresses their potential. The greatest danger of the 97% environment is not overt negativity. It is subtle tyranny of the comfort zone. Your friends and family, often with the best intentions, reinforce your current limitations. When you declare a massive goal to start a business, to run a marathon, to earn 10 times your current income, what is the first response you often hear from the 97%? It is not encouragement. It is often a cautionary tale, a question laced with doubt, or a subtle pullback towards familiarity. Are you sure? Isn't that risky? You're doing fine right now, why rock the boat? This, my friends, is the gravitational pull in action. The 97% cannot tolerate your change because your progress highlights their stagnation. Your ambition makes them confront their own comfortable compromise. So, they do not deliberately sabotage you. They simply try to restore the comfortable, predictable equilibrium. They are not steering your ship toward an iceberg. They are simply anchoring you to their harbor, a harbor where nothing moves, nothing grows, and nothing significant is ever achieved. The 3% understand that to rise, you must become a refugee from the 97%. You must orchestrate a strategic self-preservation by choosing your associations with surgical precision. This is not arrogance. This is recognizing the supreme value of your own mind and shielding it from contamination. Jim Rohn urged us to constantly examine our sphere of influence. If you want to think bigger, you must be around people whose problems are currently bigger than your goals. If your conversations are dominated by discussions about problems, the market, the government, the boss, you are firmly in the 97% territory. The 3% focus their conversations on opportunities and solutions. The 3% actively seek out people who operate as architects, not analysts. They look for associates who challenge them, who push them, who expect more from them than they currently expect from themselves. This kind of association is often uncomfortable, because genuine growth requires a constant sense of inadequacy when measured against a higher standard. But the 3% embrace this discomfort because they recognize that the pain of growth is fleeting, while the pain of stagnation is eternal. You must accept that this separation, this escape, will require difficult decisions. You may have to limit contact with people you genuinely love, but whose thinking patterns are fundamentally destructive to your ambition. This is a sacrifice, but it is a necessary one. You must choose discipline over misplaced affection. You must choose your future over their comfort. Your success is too important to be negotiated down to the lowest common denominator of your social circle. The 3% are not passive reactors to their environment. They are active engineers of it. They do not wait for inspiration. They engineer their reality to demand high performance. This extends far beyond just the 5 people you associate with. It includes the information you consume. The 97% consume news, gossip, entertainment, and social media that reinforces fear, scarcity, and victimhood. The 3% consume knowledge books, masterclasses, and speeches that reinforces competence, possibility, and ownership. They feed their minds with the raw material of success, the physical spaces you occupy. The 97% tolerate clutter, disorganization, and environments that reflect chaos. The 3% create physical spaces, a clean desk, an organized office, a planned routine that reflects order, clarity, and purpose. Your outer world must reflect your inner intention, the inner dialogue you permit. Most critically, the 3% manage their internal environment. They understand that their own self-talk is the most powerful association of all. They refuse to allow the inner voice of the 97%, the voice of doubt, of I can't, of I'm not good enough, to dominate their consciousness. They maintain the edict of identity, replacing self-doubt with self-command. Consider the parable of the two ships sailing in the dark of night. The ship of the 97% is a massive, crowded vessel. It is comfortable, warm, and everyone is talking, laughing, and sharing the same mediocre journey. They are collectively convinced they are headed for a beautiful destination because they have consensus. They are drifting, carried only by the current of popular opinion and the winds of convenience. They feel safe because they are together, but they are ultimately aimless. Their collective comfort guarantees their collective average. The ship of the 3% is a smaller vessel, carrying a focused, intense crew. It is often solitary, silent, and demanding. The crew is not governed by consensus. They are governed by a compass, their definitive chief aim. They are actively steering, making minute corrections, working through the inevitable storms, and facing the loneliness of their chosen path. They might be temporarily uncomfortable, but they are moving towards a specific, sovereign destination. The point of the law of association is simple. You must make the painful choice to leave the comfortable, crowded, drifting ship of the 97% and join the smaller, more disciplined, and intensely purposeful ship of the 3%. The biggest, most profound difference between the 97% and the 3% is not external. It is mindset. The majority are driven by fear and held captive by perceived limitations. The minority are driven by possibility and propelled by an engineered belief in their own capability. Let us look at how these mindsets translate into the material world, particularly finances. The 97% think in terms of scarcity. They focus on what is missing, what is wrong, and what they lack. They operate from the premise that resources are limited, that opportunities are rare, and that success is a zero-sum game. If they see someone else winning, they subconsciously assume that means less is available for them. This drives them to compete instead of collaborate, to protect instead of create. The 3%, by contrast, think in terms of abundance. They understand that opportunities are everywhere. They know that money is not limited. It is created through value exchange. They believe that success is not about taking from others. It is about creating value and multiplying it exponentially. This difference in thinking creates a massive, insurmountable gap in results. The game of defense. Most people are playing not to lose. They are playing defense. They are avoiding pain. They are focused on merely surviving, protecting their small patch of comfort, and clinging to stability. This is why most people live paycheck to paycheck, why most people are drowning in debt, and why most people never create real, lasting wealth. Their focus is on saving and cutting, which are inherently defensive strategies. You cannot cut your way to massive wealth. The game of offense. The 3% are playing to win. They are focused on pursuing growth. They are not trying to protect what they have. They are trying to multiply it. They are playing offense, operating from an abundance mindset that focuses on creation, investment, and leverage. That shift in mindset from defending the present to designing the future is what creates extraordinary success. We have identified the two great forces governing human outcomes: the gravitational pull of the 97% and the strategic self-preservation of the 3%. Now, we must examine the engine that powers this separation, the mindset matrix. The biggest difference between the 97% and the 3% is not external. It is not the size of their bank account or the quality of their education. It is, fundamentally, the architecture of their belief system. The majority are driven by fear and held captive by perceived limitations. The minority are driven by possibility and propelled by an engineered belief in their own capability. This is the moment where we stop talking about habits and start talking about philosophy. This is the difference between operating from a state of scarcity and operating from a state of abundance. The 97% live in a mental world of scarcity. This is not just about money. It is a lens through which they view every single aspect of existence. They focus on what is missing, what is wrong, and what they lack. Their philosophy is founded on the toxic belief that resources are limited, opportunities are finite, and success is a zero-sum game. When a scarcity thinker sees someone else winning, they subconsciously conclude that it means less is available for them. They see the world as a finite pie, and every slice taken by another successful person reduces their own potential portion. This drives them to compete instead of collaborate, to protect instead of create, and to focus obsessively on what they do not have instead of what they can build. This is the root of envy and insecurity. The scarcity mind must constantly compare and judge, because if others are rising, the scarcity mind feels itself sinking. This comparison trap is an emotional and intellectual cancer that metastasizes throughout their lives. They are constantly measuring their success based on how they are doing relative to others, leading to continuous distraction and dissatisfaction. The scarcity mindset forces the 97% to play a defensive game. Their primary goal is playing not to lose. They are focused on survival, getting through the week, paying the bills, and protecting what little they have acquired. They avoid risk because loss feels catastrophic. They choose stability over opportunity, viewing change as a threat rather than a catalyst. This defensive posture ensures their survival but guarantees their mediocrity. They live their lives trying to avoid pain, which means they must simultaneously avoid the growth that comes only through resistance and challenge. They become masters of the status quo, fighting harder to maintain their current, restrictive reality than they fight to create a new, expansive one. The scarcity mindset keeps the 97% fixed on income. They are focused on increasing their paycheck, their hourly rate, or their commission, trading their limited time for money. They believe that if they can just make more money, their problems will vanish. But money acquired through this scarcity cycle is often spent immediately to alleviate the symptoms of their anxiety, not to build a foundation. They focus on consumption, buying things to project an image of success, all driven by the underlying fear of being judged as inadequate. They are trapped in the endless loop of the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle because their focus is on making money to fill a void rather than building wealth to create freedom. The 3% operate from a mental world of abundance. This is not wishful thinking. It is a strategic operating principle. They focus on what is possible, what is available, and what they can create. Their philosophy is founded on the profound truth that opportunities are everywhere, money is created, and success is a value exchange that multiplies resources for everyone involved. The abundance thinker understands that the world is not a finite pie. It is a continuously expanding kitchen. They know that success is not about beating other people. It is about creating value and collaborating to expand the entire marketplace. When they see someone else win, they are inspired, not threatened. They study that success, looking for lessons, partnerships, and collaborations. This mindset frees them from the tyranny of envy and comparison. They measure their success by their contribution and their personal growth, not by how they rank against their neighbor. This detachment from external comparison is what allows them to stay focused while the majority are distracted by fitting in and keeping up. The abundance mindset dictates that the 3% play an offensive game. Their focus is not on surviving, it is on winning and multiplying. They seek growth that requires them to step into discomfort and uncertainty. They view risk not as a danger, but as a leveraged opportunity. They understand that true stability does not come from protecting what little you have. It comes from building systems and assets so robust that no economic shift can fundamentally shake your foundation. They are not protecting the present. They are aggressively designing and claiming the future. They pursue growth even when it is painful, because they know that stagnation is the only true failure. The abundance mindset shifts the 3%'s focus from income to assets. They understand the fundamental law of wealth. Wealth is not about how much you make. It is about how much you keep and multiply. They are focused on acquiring assets that generate cash flow businesses, real estate, intellectual property, and investments. Systems that make money even when they are not physically working. This focus on leverage frees their time and energy, allowing them to focus on high-leverage creation rather than low-leverage labor. They are intentional about making their money work for them, creating a self-sustaining cycle of exponential growth. The transition from the scarcity matrix to the abundance generator is the most profound work you will ever do. It requires a daily, ruthless discipline over your emotional and intellectual life. The scarcity thinker is trapped by their own self-imposed narratives of limitation. They say, "I can't because of the economy," or "I lack the education." The abundance thinker replaces these narratives with declarations of possibility. They understand that their mindset is their most valuable asset, and they guard it fiercely. When a scarcity thought, a worry about lack, a doubt about capability arises, the 3% practice instant replacement. They do not argue with the fear. They override it with the corresponding truth of abundance and self-command. They live by the edict of identity, declaring, "I am the creator of value. Resources flow to me." Paradoxically, the 3% who live in abundance often exhibit far greater financial discipline than the 97%. The 97% spend money impulsively, driven by emotion, fear of missing out, need for validation. The 3% spend money intentionally, driven by a long-term plan. They live below their visible means, not out of deprivation, but out of a strategic commitment to freedom. They delay gratification not because they are frugal, but because they prioritize asset multiplication over immediate consumption. This is the fundamental difference. The 97% are emotionally attached to money, panicking when they lose it, feeling validated when they make it. The 3% are emotionally detached, treating money as a neutral tool for creating value and freedom. The abundance mindset thrives on the law of expectation. The 97% expect problems, setbacks, and limited opportunities, and the universe rarely disappoints them. The 3% expect growth, opportunities, and solutions, and their prepared mindset allows them to see and seize what the 97% miss. This is not mystical. It is simply a matter of focused attention. When you operate from abundance, your brain is actively scanning the environment for collaboration, investment, and value creation. When you operate from scarcity, your brain is scanning for threats, risk, and reasons to stop. Your mindset determines what reality you are capable of perceiving. The mindset matrix is the spiritual and intellectual battleground for your future. The great tragedy is that the 97% have the capacity for abundance, but are trapped by their self-imposed scarcity. Walking away from the scarcity matrix means you must make a conscious, daily decision to change your language. Eliminate the words of lack, limitation, and comparison. Speak only the language of command and possibility. Change your focus. Dedicate your mental energy to solutions and assets, not problems and deficits. Change your game. Switch from playing defense, surviving, to playing offense, multiplying. You are the architect of your mind. You have the choice to operate from a philosophy that shrinks your world or a philosophy that expands it exponentially. The 97% are content to be spectators in the arena of life, complaining about the rules and the players. The 3% are the creators, the players, and the owners of the game. The decision is not complex. It is simply a matter of choosing the operating system that will govern your life from this moment forward. Choose to stop chasing survival and start commanding abundance. The power to design your reality rests entirely in the mindset you choose to maintain. Your destiny is waiting for you to declare it. We have established the fundamental divide. The 97% are trapped by a scarcity mindset, and the 3% are liberated by an abundance generator. This distinction is powerful, but it remains theoretical until we examine how it is applied to the two most crucial, non-renewable assets available to every human being, time and money. The real tragedy of the 97% is not that they lack these assets, but that they are such poor stewards of them. They treat their time as an infinite commodity to be wasted, and their money as a temporary tool for immediate emotional relief. This is the time and money paradox. The 97% perpetually trade their most valuable asset, time, for their least valuable objective, immediate gratification, while the 3% reverse this equation, sacrificing immediate comfort to gain control over both time and money in the future. The vast majority operate with a short-term mindset. This is the behavioral manifestation of the scarcity belief. When you fear the future, you desperately cling to the present moment, demanding instant reward, instant validation, and instant comfort. The 97% are engaged in the perpetual cycle of living for the escape. They spend 5 days a week counting down until Friday, enduring a life they tolerate, all for the fleeting pleasure of the weekend. They use those 2 precious days to escape the life they themselves have created. They are not looking for fulfillment or creation. They are looking for numbness. Think about the time wasted. Hours spent mindlessly consuming content. Hours dedicated to low-value tasks that offer the illusion of productivity. Hours consumed by gossip and conversation that goes nowhere. They say they are busy, but they are not productive. They are simply occupied. They are filling their schedules with activities that keep them occupied, but do not move them 1 inch closer to their definitive aim. They believe they have more time than they actually do, leading to endemic procrastination and the chronic deferral of the important things. The 97% confuse activity with accomplishment, and their calendar is not a strategy document. It is a record of their distraction. The 97% approach money with the same short-term desperation. They are driven by immediate gratification. They spend money they do not have to buy things they do not need, driven by the need for external validation. They finance cars they cannot afford. They rent or buy houses that stretch them financially to project an image of success. And they operate on a fundamental lie. I deserve this now. This short-term thinking keeps them perpetually trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. They are reactive with money. They wait for emergencies to dictate their actions. They hope that they will have enough left over at the end of the month. A financial strategy based entirely on chance, not on design. They are emotionally attached to money. Their self-worth rises and falls with their bank balance, making them incapable of making sound, rational financial decisions when external circumstances change. They are consumers, and their money is simply a rapidly depreciating tool for consumption. The 3% operate with a long-term mindset. This is the consistent behavioral output of the abundance belief. When you trust your ability to create value in the future, you become willing to sacrifice immediate comfort for exponential future freedom. The 3% approach time as their most valuable, non-renewable asset. They do not live for the weekend. They live for the mission. They wake up energized on Monday because they are engaged in purposeful work that aligns with their long-term vision. They are not looking to escape their life. They have built a life they do not need to escape from. They are ruthless about time. They are masters of scheduling, not because they are obsessive, but because they understand that their calendar is a reflection of their values. They protect their schedule, eliminate distractions, and dedicate their prime energy to high-leverage activities, things that create long-term value, build systems, and generate exponential growth. They understand that success is not about working more hours. It is about being effective, getting more done in fewer hours, by focusing on the right things. Their time is not an expense. It is an investment into their future self. The 3% approach money as a tool for multiplication and freedom. They are willing to endure short-term financial discomfort, driving an older car, living in a smaller home to achieve long-term financial sovereignty. They understand the power of compounding money, effort, and discipline. They are focused on investment and asset creation. They prioritize building businesses, investing in real estate, and creating streams of passive income systems that generate cash flow without their constant physical involvement. They live below their means, not because they are required to, but because they know that financial discipline is the highest form of self-respect and the fastest path to freedom. They are strategic with money. They automate their savings and investments, ensuring that the necessary actions are taken before they even have a chance to spend the money impulsively. They view money not as an identity marker, but as neutral energy to be deployed for maximum future impact. The most profound outcome of the time and money paradox is the difference between linear results and exponential results. The 97% are stuck in the linear trap. They trade 1 unit of time for 1 unit of money. Their growth is a straight, gradual line, mirroring their consistency and low-value activities. They work harder and harder for diminishing returns because they are working in the system, not on the system. They spend their time maintaining a fragile, debt-laden lifestyle instead of building a robust, asset-rich foundation. Their future is merely a slight, gradual extension of their past. They never experience the true, explosive power of compounding. The 3% are committed to the exponential leap. They understand that compounding is the greatest force in the universe. They invest their time and money today into high-leverage activities, building a system, acquiring an asset, mastering a new high-income skill that may yield zero return for the first few years. This initial period requires immense patience and discipline, which the 97% abandon. But the 3% persevere because they trust the curve. The compounding curve starts flat, almost invisible. Then, because the growth is based on the previously accrued growth, it begins to climb. Suddenly, the curve steepens, and the effort they put in 3 years ago begins to pay dividends that far surpass the linear income of the majority. They achieve more in 1 year than the 97% achieve in a decade. This is not magic. It is the mathematical result of delaying gratification, focusing on assets, and maintaining unbroken consistency. The journey from the 97% to the 3% is the journey from linear thinking to exponential action. This requires a profound internal transformation in how you treat your time and money. You must adopt the spiritual discipline of delay. This is the willingness to walk past the tempting distractions and immediate comforts of today, knowing that every act of consumption is a subtraction from your future freedom. Every dollar saved and invested, every hour spent building a system instead of watching entertainment, is a powerful vote for the future self you are committed to becoming. The 97% ask, what can I consume now? The 3% ask, what can I invest now to free my time later? The 97% are focused on saving money, playing defense. They clip coupons and look for discounts, trying to cut their way to financial security. The 3% are focused on creating and multiplying, playing offense. They know you cannot cut your way to massive wealth. They prioritize increasing their income, building new streams, and letting their money work for them. Their financial goal is not to have a comfortable savings account. It is to build an asset engine so powerful that working becomes entirely optional. You must transform your relationship with your weekend. The 97% see the weekend as a time for escape and recovery from a life they dislike. The 3% see the weekend as a prime opportunity for creation and high-leverage work that moves the mission forward. This does not mean working every hour. It means dedicating time intentionally to personal growth, planning, and asset building, ensuring that you start Monday with momentum, not exhaustion. The transition from escape to purpose is the final, decisive action in mastering your time. Understand this undeniable reality. The compounding curve of your life is running right now. Every decision you make to be distracted or to focus, to consume or to invest, to seek comfort or to pursue growth, is either adding to the exponential curve of your success or locking you further into the linear trap of mediocrity. The 97% are waiting for life to get easier. The 3% are making life easier through disciplined execution today. The difference is not talent. It is the strategic decision to prioritize the long-term, exponential rewards over the short-term, linear comforts. We have meticulously cataloged the failures of the 97%, their scarcity mindset, their adherence to the linear trap, and their tragic compliance with the gravitational pull of mediocrity. Now, we arrive at the single most insidious enemy of human potential, the force that binds the 97% to their stagnation: comfort. Comfort is not merely a pleasant state of being, it is a spiritual anesthetic. It dulls the senses, blurs the vision, and convinces the mind that survival is the same as success. The 97% choose the path of least resistance. They avoid situations that challenge them, they shun complexity, and they desperately seek predictable outcomes because they do not want to feel uncomfortable. They have been culturally conditioned to believe that if something feels hard, it must be wrong. They confuse ease with excellence, and this fatal confusion is the final anchor that keeps them trapped. The 3% are not looking for comfort, they are looking for growth. They understand an immutable law of nature, a law that governs everything, from the hardening of steel to the creation of a diamond. Growth requires discomfort. They know that in order to ascend to the next level financially, intellectually, or physically, they must intentionally step into situations where they are not fully prepared, where the outcome is uncertain, and where resistance is guaranteed. They seek out the pressure because they know that pressure creates strength. This is not masochism. This is the discipline of discomfort. and it is the price of admission to the 3% club. The 97%'s pathological need for comfort manifests in three critical areas of avoidance, guaranteeing their prolonged mediocrity. The majority are allergic to strain. They want the result without the resistance. They look for the diet that requires no hunger, the workout that requires no muscle fatigue, and the business that requires no sleepless nights. They believe in the myth of the easy button. Jim Rohn taught us, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. The 97% are constantly focused on minimizing the effort required. The 3% are constantly focused on maximizing the growth derived from the effort. The 3% understand that the body and the mind are systems designed for adaptation. If you only expose them to what is easy and familiar, they will stagnate. They actively seek out challenges that force them to adapt and improve, taking on complex projects, mastering difficult skills, waking up earlier, enduring the self-doubt of learning. They know that the only way out of a challenge is through it, and they are willing to pay the price of temporary inadequacy to secure permanent capability. The 97% avoid confrontation because it is emotionally uncomfortable. They are afraid to have difficult conversations. They are afraid to set boundaries, and they avoid speaking up because they do not want to upset other people or risk rejection. They seek harmony, even if that harmony is built upon a foundation of their own suppressed truth and ambition. This avoidance is a profound weakness that cripples their leadership and their financial outcomes. The 3% are not rude or aggressive, but they are absolutely unafraid of confrontation. They have learned how to communicate clearly, directly, and with a necessary firmness. They set boundaries without apology. They hold people accountable, including themselves. They know that in order to lead a strong business, a strong team, or a strong life, you have to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations. Success requires strength, the strength to speak truth, the strength to demand excellence, and the strength to say no to anything that compromises the mission. The 97% sacrifice integrity for ease. The 3% embrace the temporary tension of truth to secure long-term results. The 97% are terrified of failure and of looking foolish. This is the paralysis of perfection. They hesitate, they delay, and they wait for certainty because they do not want to lose. This fear, rooted in the need for external approval and the scarcity mindset, guarantees they will miss the best opportunities. The 3% have a radically different relationship with failure. They expect it. They understand that failure is not a personal indictment. It is simply data. They know that every setback is an opportunity to learn, adjust, and improve. They have trained themselves to detach from the outcome, the fear of loss, and to focus intensely on the process, the quality of their execution. This emotional detachment allows them to recover quickly, while the 97% are still paralyzed, licking their wounds and recycling their excuses. They understand that the willingness to look foolish in the short term is the price for winning in the long term. The 3% have conditioned themselves to seek out discomfort. They view it as a necessary filter, a gateway to growth. They do not see pressure as a negative force. They see it as the required condition for their best performance. The 3% use discomfort as a diagnostic tool. When they feel stress, they don't immediately retreat. They ask, where is the tension coming from? Is this the pain of growth or the pain of poor structure? The pain of growth, the feeling of a new skill being forged, or a tough conversation being navigated, is welcomed. The pain of poor structure, the stress from procrastination or disorganization, is immediately addressed and eliminated. They learn to distinguish between necessary and unnecessary pain. The 97% simply avoid all pain, thus avoiding all diagnosis and subsequent growth. The 3% intentionally put themselves in situations where they have to operate under pressure. They understand that a ship is tested by the storm, not the harbor. They do not avoid high-stakes challenges. They seek them out because they know that performance under pressure is what separates the apprentice from the master. By consistently choosing the difficult assignment, the challenging client, or the next level of financial risk, they are conditioning their internal operating system to function optimally when the stakes are highest. This accumulated experience of operating under duress creates an internal strength, a form of mental and emotional callousing that the 97% simply do not possess. The 97% wait for motivation to arrive before taking action. They tell themselves they will work harder when they feel inspired, or start the business when the timing is perfect. This is a fatal error. The 3% understand that motivation is unreliable. Discipline is immutable. They take action when they do not feel like it. They execute even when they are tired or uninspired. They understand that motivation follows action. It does not precede it. By taking the disciplined action first, stepping into the necessary discomfort, they generate the momentum, and the feeling of motivation inevitably follows. This ability to separate action from emotion is why they stay consistent, while the majority are constantly starting and stopping. The discipline of discomfort is ultimately the commitment to progress over perfection. The 97% wait for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, and the perfect feeling, leading to analysis paralysis. The 3% understand that action creates clarity. The 3% embrace the law of iteration. They know that you cannot figure it all out in advance. They take the first step, a difficult, uncomfortable, imperfect step, gather feedback from the resulting failure or partial success, adjust their strategy, and immediately take the next step. They are constantly moving forward, treating every challenge as a learning opportunity. This constant, iterative movement, often marked by short-term discomfort, is why they create momentum while others are still spinning in circles, waiting for the ideal moment that never arrives. The 97% are controlled by excuses. They use them as a comfortable shield against the outside world. They tell themselves they are too busy, too tired, too old, or too broke. The 3% reject excuses absolutely. They understand that no one cares about their excuses. Success is not about having perfect conditions. It is about taking action despite imperfect conditions. Their refusal to make excuses is the highest expression of their commitment to the discipline of discomfort. They focus relentlessly on solutions instead of problems. The willingness to face resistance head-on is why the 3% break through while others stay stuck. The journey to the 3% is not a journey toward ease. It is a journey toward the mastery of strain. You now understand the architecture of the winner's commitment to discomfort. You know that the real failure is not falling down. The real failure is staying stuck because you were too afraid to try. The 3% have simply realized that the temporary discomfort of growth is a small price to pay for long-term freedom and sovereignty. The 97% choose the comfort of the familiar and the predictability of mediocrity. The 3% choose the pain of growth and the extraordinary reward of reaching their full potential. The decision is not about whether you will feel fear. It is about whether you will act despite fear. It is about whether you will choose the temporary difficulty of discipline over the eternal regret of mediocrity. The path to the 3% is paved with challenges you will choose to embrace. Go forth and make the uncomfortable choice that guarantees your growth. We have meticulously dissected the anatomy of success. We have exposed the toxic environment of the 97%, the gravitational pull of mediocrity. We have illuminated the two operating systems, the fatal scarcity matrix and the liberating abundance generator. We have established the supreme price of entry into the 3%, the discipline of discomfort. Now, we arrive at the culminating point, the single moment of truth that determines your future, the final decision. The difference between the 97% and the 3% is not talent. It is not luck. It is not resources. It is, distilled to its pure essence, mindset, habits, and decisions. The 3% have trained themselves to think differently, to act differently, and to execute differently. But the engine that drives all of this, the spark that initiates the separation, is the willingness to make a high-level decision and adhere to it without compromise. The 97% are controlled by excuses. The 3% are controlled by strategy. The 97% give themselves reasons to stay where they are. The 3% reject all excuses and focus relentlessly on solutions. This is the final, non-negotiable divide. The excuse is the 97%'s most comfortable shield against the outside world. It is a psychological defense mechanism designed to protect the ego from the painful reality of stagnation. The 97% are masters of the vocabulary of victimhood. They tell themselves they are too old, too young, too busy, too tired, too broke. They tell themselves they do not have the right resources, the right connections, or the right timing. These are not objective facts. They are self-imposed sentences. They are narratives created to justify inaction. The moment you state an excuse, You have relinquished your power to that external condition. You have declared, "The world is in control of me." Jim Rohn warned us that excuses are the nails used to build a house of failure. The 97% spend their lives constructing elaborate, structurally sound excuses, and then they wonder why they never leave the mediocrity of the house they built. The excuse maker operates from an external locus of control. They genuinely believe that success is contingent upon conditions outside of themselves. The economy must improve, the government must change, the boss must give a raise, the kids must get older. They are waiting for the perfect circumstances, a mythical state that exists only in the mind of the passive thinker. Because they are waiting, they are paralyzed. This waiting is the most expensive inaction in history, costing them their potential, their time, and their freedom. The 3% reject this entire premise. They understand that no one cares about their excuses. Success is not about having perfect conditions. It is about taking action despite imperfect conditions. They train themselves to focus on solutions instead of problems, on strategy instead of reasons why the strategy won't work. The 3% operate from a place of sovereignty, a profound, irreversible internal declaration that I am the architect, not the victim. This sovereignty manifests in the absolute refusal to make excuses and the unwavering commitment to strategy. The 3% take extreme ownership of their lives. They do not expect handouts. They do not expect life to be fair. They know that their future is 100% their responsibility. They own their failures not with drama, but with surgical analysis, and they own their successes. They understand that the moment you take full responsibility for your life, you reclaim your power. That level of accountability is the highest form of self-respect and the single most reliable predictor of success. The 97% avoid this accountability because it is uncomfortable. It requires accepting painful truths. The 3% seek accountability because it is the clearest path to correction and growth. The 97% are trapped in analysis paralysis. They overthink. They spend too much time planning and preparing, convincing themselves they need more information, more certainty, before they can start. The 3% understand that action creates clarity. They do not wait for all the answers. They take the first step, gather feedback, adjust, and keep moving forward. This willingness to act quickly, without having all the answers, is why they create momentum while others are still spinning in intellectual circles. The plan is useless until execution begins. The 3% are not thinking about how to feel ready. They are thinking about what strategic step must be executed next. Their actions are not driven by motivation. They are driven by the unwavering adherence to their strategic plan. The commitment to strategy also means abandoning the most common prison of the 97%, the need for approval. The 97% are trapped by the need for approval. They make decisions based on what other people think. They worry about being judged, and they hesitate to take action because they are afraid of criticism. They conform to social norms even when those norms are keeping them broke and stuck because they prioritize fitting in over breaking through. They live their lives according to other people's expectations, and consequently, they live an ordinary life. The 3% are not controlled by the need for approval. They trust their own judgment. They are not concerned with what the 97% think because they know that most people are not winning. They have realized that you cannot live an extraordinary life if you're constantly trying to please people who are living an ordinary life. This detachment from approval is why they operate with confidence while others are controlled by fear. They are willing to look foolish in the short term to drive the old car, to wear the simple clothes, to spend their weekend working on assets in order to win in the long term. They sacrifice short-term image for long-term power. Walking away from the 97% is not a passive event. It is a series of hard, conscious decisions, rooted in strategy, not sentiment. The 3% understand that success requires sacrifice. This is not the sacrifice of joy, but the sacrifice of comfort. It means cutting association, making the hard decision to limit contact with relationships that are no longer serving your mission, delaying gratification, saying an immediate, firm no to short-term pleasure, the extra hour of sleep, the impulsive purchase, the wasted weekend, so you can create long-term success. Embracing misunderstanding, accepting that most people will not understand why you are working so hard, why you are so disciplined, or why you are taking things too seriously. They will try to pull you back into the comfort of mediocrity. But the 3% know that success is not about being liked. It is about being respected for your unwavering results. The 97% cling to the comfort of the familiar because they are afraid of losing what little they have. They are afraid of failing. But the 3% have a different fear, the ultimate fear. The real failure is looking back on your life and realizing that you never reached your full potential because you were too afraid to try. The 3% know that growth comes through struggle, that success requires risk, and they are willing to take that risk because they have realized that staying the same is the greatest risk of all. Complacency is the silent killer of destiny. The 97% will continue to blame the economy, their upbringing, and their circumstances. But the 3% have realized that success is not about circumstances. It is about decisions. They have made the decision to think differently. They have made the decision to operate at a higher level. They have made the decision to expect more from themselves. And that decision changes everything. You now have the complete blueprint. The time for discussion, for analysis, and for hesitation is over. The struggle for success is over. The commitment to discipline must now begin. Your future is not determined by the world's conditions, but by your next high-level decision. Make the decision to be the 3%. The knowledge is now yours. Your future is determined by your unwavering execution of these principles. You must choose strategy over excuses. You must choose ownership over victimhood. The 97% are done. The 3% are waiting. The decision that changes everything is yours to make right now. We have reached the terminal point of this profound analysis. We have meticulously stripped away the layers of illusion and excuse that bind the majority. We have exposed the statistical reality of the 97%, the scarcity mindset, the linear trap, the gravitational pull of comfort. We have defined the architecture of the 3%, their abundance generator, their mastery of compounding, and their unwavering discipline of discomfort. There are no more secrets left. There are no more obscure formulas or esoteric techniques to learn. All the laws have been laid bare. Your financial success, your physical vitality, your relational depth, and your spiritual fulfillment, all of it is governed by the simple, observable, and reproducible laws we have discussed. The only remaining question is not what you know, but what you will decide to do with this truth. The 97% will continue talking about the information. They will file it away under good ideas, wait for external motivation, and eventually allow the comfortable pressure of their environment to pull them back into predictable routines. They will continue thinking small, acting small, and living small. They will blame the economy, their upbringing, their parents, and their circumstances for their stagnation. But the 3% have realized the ultimate, liberating truth. Success is not about circumstances, it is about decisions. A decision, as Jim Rohn taught, is not merely a preference. It is a cut. It is the moment you irreversibly sever ties with the possibility of the opposite outcome. It is a moment of profound internal sovereignty. The 3% have already made the ultimate decision. The decision to operate at a higher level, regardless of how they feel, regardless of what others think, and regardless of the perceived risk. This decision is the firewall that separates their strategy from the 97%'s excuses. The foundation of this final ascension is the decision to embrace extreme ownership. The 97% are stuck in cycles of blame and victimhood because they are terrified of owning their failures. The 3% choose to own everything, their failures, their successes, their weaknesses, and their strengths. The moment you declare, "My life is 100% my responsibility," you reclaim all the power you had previously given away to external forces. You cease being a pawn of the environment and become the master architect of your destiny. This ownership is not a burden. It is the ultimate liberation. It means that if something is wrong, you have the power to fix it. If something is missing, you have the power to create it. This profound internal shift from waiting to creating is the hallmark of the winner. The greatest tragedy of the 97% is that they stay stuck because they are too afraid. Afraid of failing, afraid of looking foolish, afraid of leaving behind the comfort of the familiar. They allow fear to veto their ambition. The 3% are not fearless. They have simply made the decision that their ambition is greater than their fear. They understand the ultimate trade-off. Temporary discomfort is a small price to pay for long-term freedom. They have calculated that the real failure is not falling down. The real failure is looking back on your life and realizing that you never reached your full potential because you were too paralyzed to try. They know that staying the same is the greatest risk of all, because complacency is the silent, guaranteed killer of opportunity. You must make the decision to act in the presence of fear. For fear is simply the necessary signal that you are stepping into a new, higher level of growth. The decision to join the 3% is not a solitary event. It is a sustained, irreversible act of separation from the thinking, habits, and environment of the majority. You must now consciously enforce the law of association. The 97% will not understand your new level of discipline. They will see your growth as a threat to their comfort. They will tell you that you are working too hard, that you are being too extreme, that you are taking things too seriously. They will try to pull you back into the collective comfort of mediocrity, often under the guise of caring or balance. Your decision must be final. You cannot live an extraordinary life if you are constantly conforming to the expectations of ordinary people. This separation requires hard choices, cutting the cord of complaint. You must ruthlessly eliminate the vocabulary of victimhood and complaint from your conversations, both internal and external. Setting boundaries. You must set clear, non-negotiable boundaries with people who chronically waste your time or compromise your focus. Embracing misunderstanding. You must accept that your ambition will be misunderstood and criticized. The 3% understand that success is not about being liked. It is about being respected for your unwavering results. You must be willing to disappoint people who expect you to stay the same size. The decision to join the 3% is also a financial and temporal declaration. You must choose investment over consumption. The 97% are trapped because they prioritize immediate pleasure. The 3% prioritize delayed gratification. This means making the intentional sacrifice, saying no to short-term pleasure, the impulsive purchase, the wasted hours of entertainment, so you can create the long-term success that guarantees your freedom. Every dollar you invest in assets, every hour you invest in learning, is a vote for the future sovereign self you are committed to becoming. The 97% seek to escape their life. The 3% seek to engineer their life. The decision to be the 3% must be supported by an unwavering commitment to the 3 pillars we have identified. The discipline of mindset, abundance. You must commit to replacing every scarcity thought with an abundance declaration. You must guard your mind against negative input, treating your consciousness as the sacred creation chamber it is. The discipline of strategy, compounding. You must commit to the long-term game. Stop looking for shortcuts and hacks. Success is about consistency, about doing the work every day, and trusting the exponential power of the compounding curve, even when the results are invisible in the early years. The discipline of action, discomfort. You must commit to the path of resistance. Stop avoiding the hard part. Seek out challenges that force you to adapt, grow, and perform better. You must train yourself to act independently of motivation, understanding that discipline is the engine of all lasting success. The truth is, the gap between the 97% and the 3% is only growing wider. The 97% are relying on the wrong blueprint, fueled by the wrong philosophy, and paralyzed by the wrong fear. The 3% are winning because they have trained themselves to think, act, and operate differently. They have built the mental strength, emotional control, and strategic thinking that allows them to succeed under any circumstance. The time for analysis is over. The time for theory is finished. The decision is now before you. This is the moment where you must make the cut, the irreversible commitment to your full potential. You have been given the blueprint. You know the cost of admission. You understand that the biggest risk is not in failing, it is in staying the same. The decision that changes everything is not a complex 5-step process. It is a single, powerful act of the will. It is the moment you stop saying, "I'll try," and start declaring, "I will, I am, it is done." Make the decision to think bigger. Make the decision to act better. Make the decision to expect more from yourself. Go forth now, not as a seeker of potential, but as a sovereign individual who has claimed their destiny through the supreme power of an unwavering decision. Do not let this truth escape your grasp. Your life will not change next year. Your life will change the moment you make a new, high-level decision today. Choose to be the 3%. Choose the discipline. Choose the sovereignty. Make the decision now. You now hold the master keys, the knowledge of the great divide, the strategy of the 3%, and the imperative of the final decision. Jim Rohn famously said, "Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment." This entire presentation has been your blueprint to build that bridge. The separation between you and your destiny is not luck. It is integrity to these high-level decisions. Do not let this profound truth be a fleeting inspiration. If this message has served as the final catalyst for your separation from mediocrity, take the final, crucial step now. Subscribe to this channel to ensure your continuous exposure to the mindset of the master. Share this video with the one person you know who is tired of surviving and ready to thrive. And, as a declaration of your new commitment, solidify your choice by commenting below and simply writing, "I am the 3%. The commitment to discipline has just begun. Go and live your life designed by you.